Okay. Well, here we are. Howdy, folks. It's 7:30 p.m. CST on the 25th of December, 2021. It's Christmas time. And I welcome you back to episode 61 of Cast Talks. So, today a lot of our good news will be Christmas themed, I can tell you already. And thank you for the message from TP James. He was in here for a few minutes, or they were in there for a few minutes, excuse me. And if you're still listening, I hope that you're doing great. Oh, and a special shout out to my friend Rissy, who I was able to talk to a little bit today, sending her my thoughts. So today we have some, I believe you could call it festive news would be a good word for it, but I'll give you a couple days. Forest Coral IVF, you're still here and you're doing good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. It has been a little while since you've been able to make your appearance, but it is good to see your name in the chat. First Coral IVF babies on Great Barrier Reef have produced next generation. Lovely. Scientists create biodegradable batteries that can be buried in soil after use. Also fantastic. Watch this massive ocean sunfish swim with paddle boarders off of the California coast. It's another good one. Mystery Santa caught on CCTV sneaking around at night, leaving gifts for residents to find. This reminds me of a Sneak King, the game where you would be the king from Carl's Jr. Was it Carl's Jr. or was it? It was Burger King, and you would try to sneak food to people. It was very creepy because the person who wears the costume in general, the Burger King costume, has always been creepy to me, at least. I'm sure there are many people who would agree. Well, Tubi, you tell me how your week's been. Give me all the info that you'd like to. More than happy to hear about it. So, we're going to start with our coral news. Ooh, unless we want to start with fairy tale ending for Three Little Pigs. Oh, Rissy, I was just saying I was wishing you good vibes. And Merry Christmas to you. I'm so glad you could make it. So this news is from the 19th. The first coral IVF babies in the Great Barrier Reef have produced the next generation. The first time that a breeding population has been established on the Great Barrier Reef using the innovative process. Researchers have found that 22 large coral colonies born through the first coral IVF trial on the reef in 2016 have grown to maturity and were filled with eggs and sperm ready to spawn after the recent full moon mass coral spawning event. Your week's been alright, but just tiring and busy because of Christmas. It's been good though. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Did you get any good gifts this year? Great Barrier Reef Foundation Managing Director Anna Marsden said, "We couldn't be more excited to see that these coral babies have grown from microscopic larvae to the size of dinner plates, having not only survived a bleaching event but are now reproducing themselves, helping to produce larvae that can restore a degraded reef." From the larvae deployed 5 years ago, you were able to get yourself a PS5 and a couple of games. That sounds very fun. I'm interested in playing some of those games eventually, but I've never really been much of a console guy. I had an Xbox 360 for a little while, but it's so old it's practically bricked at this point, if not literally bricked. I used to love me some Gears of War, though. That was a very fun time for me, especially the Horde mode. Many of dozens of other small colonies are not quite large enough to reproduce, but should be breeding next year. After discovering the potential of this game-changing technique, the Great Barrier Reef Foundation has brought together its partners and the public back in 2016 to give nature a helping hand near Heron Island. Lead researcher and Southern Cross University Distinguished Professor Peter Harrison said coral, I think this is actually 4F, not IVF, is the first project of its kind to reestablish coral on damaged reefs by collecting millions of coral eggs and sperm during the spawning season, growing them into baby corals and releasing them directly onto degraded areas of the reef. This is a thrilling result to see these colonies we settled during the first small-scale pilot study grow over 5 years and become actively reproductive. The larvae generated from the spawning corals have dispersed within the Heron Island Lagoon and may settle on patches of reef nearby, helping to further restore other reef patches that have been impacted by climate change. This has given me and the rest of the team renewed enthusiasm as we research additional techniques on Lizard Island through the Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program in collaboration with CSIRO, QUT, and with support from Australian Institute of Marine Science. That will enable us to scale up and optimize this technique. The Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program is the world's largest and most ambitious effort to develop, test, and deploy at-scale protection, restoration, and adaptation interventions to ensure that the Great Barrier Reef and coral reefs globally can resist, adapt to, and recover from the impacts of climate change. Saving the reef is a huge task, says Marston, but having proof that this innovative, cutting-edge science works gives us hope. Well, that is certainly lovely news in my opinion. Anything that's like hopeful for being able to continue living on this planet in the next 50 years is good news, and at least a consolation by my own estimates. So here is a good news story about some pigs. A fairy tale ending for 3 little pigs stuck in a pen that was always flooded. Just in time for the holidays, it's a fairy tale ending for these 3 little pigs. The pigs themselves had been confined to a perpetually flooded pen in the woods of Norfolk, Virginia. PETA said its field workers visited the pigs regularly to give them clean straw bedding and nutritious food. But there was no relief from the rainwater that filled their makeshift pen. Eventually their owner agreed to let PETA whisk them away to a new home. So now they get to enjoy the holidays at the Blind Spot Animal Sanctuary and Rescue in North Carolina. Lovely. I think I have a comment about PETA after this, which I'll hold until the story is finished. Let's see, how's the level on that? Just fine, okay, cool. Eventually, their owner, the pigs have been exploring open fields, foraging for food, splashing in a pool, and dining on seasonal, fresh treats like fresh pumpkin. I could turn that up a little bit more, actually, huh? There we go. Oh, too much. There we go. Alright, good. These 3 little pigs are living happily ever after in their new sanctuary home, says PETA's Daphne Najminovich. I got that one. The video below shows their rescue and their release into greener pastures. Maybe their story will inspire other people to offer some comfort and joy to animals this season and throughout the year. So they're not living in the best conditions. Yeah, they're dealing with a lot of rainwater. So generally, I have really good feelings about people who are with PETA that are doing it for voluntary reasons and for reasons that involve trying to make the lives of animals either more equal in the face of them being different from us or more ethical in the face of them being similar to us. However, I think I have a problem with the idea of people not encouraging or disencouraging or making statements about the movie industry and animals in the movie industry. Considering it does seem to me like they consider every animal in the movie industry to have been seemingly harmed to get to be able to work and perform the way they perform in the movies that they're in. Now, whether or not this is actually the case, whether or not they actually believe this, whether or not this is actually true, I can't speak to the facts and the details, but it does seem as if they have a bone to pick with that sort of thing, which I appreciate because the world is filled with people who do mistreat animals to put them in movies and stuff, and certainly there is no country in the world that is innocent of a crime like that in their film history. However, I do feel like the energy of combating a force which isn't completely even solidly determined to be good or bad, I feel like that could be better spent and more easily accepted and nurtured and given a good vibe, and also yet another reason to actually trust and believe in PETA as opposed to, I want to call it a publicity nightmare. I don't think that's completely true either, but they seem to have a very bad publicity. And even me, somebody who basically agrees with a lot of what they say, I don't like them very much. I like the good work they do, like in that exact instance, but I think that their creed and motto and their methodology I find to be lacking in a lot of ways, and maybe they've changed since like the last few years that I've watched them and their activity. But their activism, I don't know. I mean, protest is really important. It's important to protest things, but I'm more of a volunteer and activism guy than I am a protest guy, though I suppose there are times I would be okay with protesting something. I'm in the camp of helping the small and unimportant people of the world, right? Doing good work to help make people live better lives, and animals are similar in that way. I'd like to give them better lives too. I even thought about going to the animal shelter today, but I imagined it might be closed or just insanely busy. I'm not sure which I would expect. I hope they can win me over again, though, because I genuinely like the idea of PETA. I have seen a lot of negative things from them in the past and in the recent history of their existence. I certainly hope that their PR has a turnaround at some point. It was a good story, though. World's largest real-life study on CBD products finds improvements in pain, anxiety, and sleep. History's largest real-world evidence study, consisting of nearly 3,000 participants, has just produced some stunning results on the use of commercially available, off-the-shelf, anyone could buy them right now, cannabidiol CBD products. Known as the ACEs trial, Advancing CBD, Education and Sciences, participants experienced a 71% improvement in their well-being on average, while 63% experienced an improvement in anxiety and sleep quality, and 47% experienced improvements in pain levels. 61% of participants reported an effect within 1 to 4 hours of taking their product. The group behind the trial is Radical Science, a health tech startup looking to revolutionize the way in which natural consumer products are studied and evaluated for efficacy. Radical science has delivered much-needed clarity to a confusing marketplace where consumers are baffled as to which products and dosages might best serve their needs, says Ethan Russo, MD. It's a great last name. One of the study's collaborator working with Radical. Radical is charting a compelling and innovative course towards offering personalized, predictive data on the health effects of cannabinoid oil products consumed by millions of Americans every day. And indeed, it is millions. A 2019 Gallup poll found that an estimated 14%, or at least 1 in 7 Americans that answered Gallup polls, report to use CBD, mostly for pain, even though a Consumer Brand Association study in July of 2021 found that consumer knowledge of CBD is around 3.3 out of 10. Despite the massive and growing market size, there is still scant data on the effectiveness of over-the-counter cannabinoid products, says Jeffrey Chen, MD and CEO of Radical Science. A June Radical Science study on the use of CBD product for women also found very significant improvements in the reporting of anxiety, which was sustained over a 60-day period. Radical uses ground source data and machine learning while eliminating all physical infrastructure to conduct its trials, yet they establish the same regulations as randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of medical research. For example, 208 participants took one of a selection of 13 off-the-shelf, over-the-counter CBD products, while a group of 298, which received nothing but placebo, acted as the control group. Respected scientific indices, standardized by the WHO and NIH, were used to measure participants' self-reported data, and the trial organizers didn't know who got placebo and who got CBD. That's pretty good. Double blind. ACEs was launched in August and was finished before Thanksgiving. For comparison, one meta-analysis found the average time it takes an RCT to finish is 20 months, rising to 3.5 years if including recruitment, which can take 2 years. So only a few months. The study was funded collectively by the 13 brands which were trialed. The products were tested by Radical and a third party to see if they contained the ingredients reported and the levels at which they were reported, and then the company supplied enough doses to cover 3,000 people over the 4-week period. It's generally considered that a reported rate of clinically significant effects greater than 60% represent some of humanity's most successful medications. For example, acetaminophen, the base ingredient in many off-the-shelf painkillers, confers a 52% reported effect for headaches, around 20% higher than placebo, one trial found. For 3 of the 4 measured effects to have been reported as improved by greater than 60% is a major success, all the more impressive when one considers the nature of Radical's method, that they're not excluding nearly anyone, nor are they policing the dosing habits. By including the no's, the results are pure in a way. Looking at the results clearly, it differs depending on which condition, but yes, it looks pretty darn robust, says Chen. One caveat here is this is just the top line result. The next layer of analyses we want to run is starting to dive into those who didn't experience a clinically significant improvement. Radical plans to release the updated findings in early 2022, including conditions and results based on demographic, underlying conditions, or dose dependencies, to see if there are habits or conditions that disrupt the benefit conferred by the CBD. They also plan to continue their research into CBD using their breakneck speed, opening the field into THCV for focus and appetite suppression, CBN, and other minor cannabinoids. So I certainly think it's a good idea to work with these slightly miraculous drugs, right? Because it is sort of miraculous. that something like THC or CBD or any of the effects that are caused by marijuana can be so helpful to so many people. I hope in the near future, like next 10 years, that we start to take that really seriously and use it for what it's able to give us. So here's this one. I like this one already. The world's first 3D printed house made of local raw earth, and it closes the roof with a dome. This is by Andy Corpley from the 20th. Inspired by the Potter Wasp, an Italian architecture firm has used 3D printing to make the domed, beehive-like structure of a house out of zero-emissions clay in the hope of showing what heights of sustainability can be reached with the technology. Someone 3D printed a house? Yeah, I know what you mean. It's crazy. And they look pretty cool, too. The insides are great. Like the industrious wasps, the houses are made using the clay from wherever they're being built, which also means that if they have to be knocked down, the only waste is the plumbing, gas, and electrical components that can't be salvaged. Mario Cucinella Architects in Bologna, I'm not sure which one that is, maintains that the idea of the city must be challenged, and their contender is a modular series of clay pods not out of place inside the great enclosure in Zimbabwe. The method is called TECLA, short for Technology and Clay. Co-developed by Cucinella with help from another company called Wasp, which specialize in 3D printing solutions. Their modular design utilizes two 3D printing arms at once to create two domed spaces out of 350 layers of undulating clay and rice chaff as insulation. Undulating clay, oh my gosh. Similar to the traditional building methods of the Moroccan Kasbah, the goal is to be totally off-grid, and the design and durability can be modified according to climate and local challenges. Oh my gosh, look at the inside of this thing. Wow. Cucinella lost the opportunity to call the project Circadian Cupulas, as one is designed for the day with a large, it really is beautiful, isn't it? With a large circular skylight and door letting in plenty of natural light, and another one for night with a smaller, warmer enclosed setting under a smaller window. So a 2-room building, I mean, if you can get, so like assume, here I'll go back to this in a minute after I finished. Tree Hugger says the idea is that Cucinella architects will make these cupulas as self-sustaining eco-communities, both for the outskirts of urban areas and for developing countries through WASP's contribution of a sort of DIY version of the houses. So, the idea would be you have a single room over here, it may even have like a bathroom segment attached to it, or a fold-away bathroom or something crazy, and a bed that can exist here as well. Maybe the bed is over here, I'm not sure which would be easier. And in this space where the tree is, you just have the kitchen. It's like a stovetop and an oven and maybe a sink. That's all you would need, really, is all electric or gas. And basically, you could just live here. It's like a single room apartment almost, right? It is technically 2 rooms, but I mean, this is a house, right? It's not the biggest house, and I think it would be a little difficult to furnish this properly. You might need some custom furniture for it to work right, but I mean, I guess the real question is, would you live here? And if it was well furnished, sure, I'd live here, right? I'm fine with living in a place like that's this pretty and looks like it would be this great for the environment to live in. I have no problem with that. Now, how long would I want to live here? I can't say. I don't know what it's like to live in a place like this. It might be really small on the inside, and I could see that being a problem, but assuming that it is spacious enough for someone who is 6 foot and 160 pounds to live in adequately, I think this is a great idea. And for like the first iteration of this kind of design, Like James said, it is beautiful. It's a great thing. Love the architecture, which like plants being used in the middle of it. Here's a good one. Teens build bus stop shelter for 5-year-old wheelchair user, protecting him from harsh weather. Yeah, I think this guy does need help if he's like sitting out in the rain and stuff during the day. This is from the 20th. Teenagers have, yeah, I know, it's pretty great, have built a shelter for a 5-year-old boy who uses a wheelchair after noticing he got wet while waiting for the school bus in winter. 5-year-old Ryder Killam has had to battle rain, wind, and snow for about 15 minutes every day using only a patio umbrella as protection, and that might not be the best thing for him as well. But after hearing about his problem, local students in Bradford, Rhode Island, got to work and built him his own bus shelter for the bottom of his driveway during their construction lessons. Ryder's father, Tim, said, Ryder uses it every day before school, and his nurse waits inside it every day while they await his return home. He does like to go hang out in front of it from time to time, as his Ford as well. This project brought our community together a bit. It showed that there is still so much good in this world in town. Ryder was born with spina bifida, myeloma. That's a tough one, and has never been able to walk. There's some tough words I have to read on here sometimes, and I try my best to get through them, but they're pretty scientific. He stated using a wheelchair. He started, is what they meant to put there, when he was 2 years old. He started attending inclusionary preschool Dunn's Corner Elementary in June of 2019, and every day had to be pushed 75 feet to the end of the road to wait for his school bus by his parents, Tim and Nikia. As Ryder was unable to rush for this bus, if he was running late, like his peers, this would often mean he'd have to wait up for 15 minutes out in whatever weather there was. In September this year, just when Ryder had started kindergarten, Tim decided to put up a patio umbrella at the end of his driveway to provide some shelter from the elements. He said, the problem is, with the wind and fall weather here in New England, it really didn't accomplish much unless it was just a rainy day with no wind. Otherwise, he would still get wet and not stay warm. Oh, that poor kid. They decided to reach out to their community to see if anyone had anything that would work to protect Ryder from the elements. Tim, who runs a marine electronics company, said, I placed a post on Facebook looking to see if one of my friends or one of their connections might have an old bus hut. I see them here, and they're on people's property, and figured maybe someone had one and had grown children that might not need it anymore. Oh, look at that little boy. That kid is a trooper. Look at him doing the wheelchair stuff at the age of 5. This is what I want. I'll tell you after we finish reading this what I want for this kid. After the post, a WPS member suggested I reach out to the construction class at Westerly High and see if they would want to take on a project of building Ryder a bus stop hut. Tim sent Dan McKenna, who had been teaching construction technology at Westerly High for 27 years, an email asking if he'd be interested in this kind of project. He responded with an absolutely, and then he worked with his students to design and build the hut. It's even got a ramp, wow! 3 of Mr. McKenna's classes worked hard on the project for numerous weeks, learning new skills through YouTube as they created the structure, motivated by the cause and knowing that soon snow would be falling. About $300 worth of wood was donated by Home Depot for the project, but the rest of the materials were purchased by the Kilmans for $600, who were kept updated with photos throughout. The hut was built 5 by 8 feet so that it could fit both Ryder and one of his parents or nurse comfortably, and was finally delivered to the home 6 weeks later on November the 2nd. Tim said, we were shocked. It was much bigger than we expected and allows such great access for Ryder and an adult to be with him comfortably. Ryder's first reaction was, "Holy cow!" He loved it and wants to hang out in it all the time. The family sent a photo of Ryder in the bus shelter and thanked the teens for their hard work. We're sure they were thrilled to see just how their project has helped others. So, this young man, only 5 years old and dealing with it sounds like a fairly uncommon or rare spine disorder. What I want for him in this world is to one day see that conditions like his can be fixed with something maybe even as simple as a kind of connective, like a stem cell tissue or some kind of technology that allows the use of stem cells to repair that broken damage and that broken tissue. And at least letting him use crutches, right? That would be fantastic for this kid. To go from wheelchairs to crutches is a huge thing for a lot of people. Just being able to like even partially move your legs, an additional 25%. People with the ability to move with crutches, that would be outstanding. That would be enough. That would be enough. Some crazy technology like that. But I'm going to say this. I think that in less than 15 years, when this guy's 20, I think that his spine there will probably be a huge amount of treatments that are available to help him just like get back to like 70% or above mobility. Like already in this past couple of years, we have seen some crazy stuff. And there's some crazy stuff in this episode today too. But like, even if he could go from wheelchair to crutches, even if that was something he could do, that would be enough, right? That would be like, hey, I'm basically just slower and but able to go upstairs, able to do most things people can, just needs to be a little slower, you know? And still keep the wheelchair around in case you want to use that. But just having the choice. If this kid can do that in 15 years and can like be back on his feet in that time, that's a wonderful idea. Honestly, I would be happy if the world could happen in that way. So this is a crazy one here. This hotel suite carved in ice will leave you warm with memories of nature's beauty. By Andy Corley from the 20th. Whether one is looking for midnight sun or northern lights, one of the least disputed places to do so is at Sweden's Ice Hotel. Now, the legendary all-ice building hosts a new suite designed by the Prince of Sweden to paradoxically celebrate the country's Midsummer Festival. I gotta know more about this now. Just as the hotel, made entirely of snow and ice, has had to be rebuilt every year since its inception in 1989. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine rebuilding a complete hotel with like you're basically ice sculpting an entire hotel every year. That's madness. I can't even imagine the amount of work that goes into that. Like that's mind-boggling to me. Prince Carl Philip's suite reflects the brevity with flowers and summer decorations encased in ice. Oh, gosh, bizarre. It's some kind of fantasy building, you know? Like only wizards could do that. Or like waterbenders who could make things turn into ice. Called Midsummer Night's Dream, the walls and blocks of the suite contain colorful floral decorations, while a stunning chandelier of ice and flowers gives light to the ethereal space. Well, what better way to show the true character of the ice than to encapsulate the most delicate and beautiful Swedish midsummer flowers in an Arctic environment? For us Swedes, midsummer, and especially Midsummer's Night, is filled with myth and legend. The prince and his business partner Oscar Kalber, who helped design the suite, said in a statement, "The layers of metaphor are as thick as winter snowdrifts in the town of Yogasvari." No, I'm going to try it again. Jukkasarvi. Gosh, it's a hard one. 120 miles inside the Arctic Circle where Ice Hotel is located. I'm going to go there someday. I've decided. This sounds like an honestly fantastic idea. Like the beautiful summer flowers used in the design, the suite in all its beauty will last through the season, only to vanish and leave nothing but memories at its end. The memory flowers mirror the happy Swedes, a country which ranks 6 on the global happiness scale, and which must enjoy its northern reaches being essentially encased in ice for 6 months of the year. Kalber and Prince were 2 of 32 artists selected to make this year's ice hotel, as they run a design firm that boasts clients like Hastings and George Jensen. Ice Hotel consists of 24 rooms, 12 artistically rendered suites, and a ceremonial hall, this time around at least, as it changes every year. The company behind it runs the Winter Hotel, rebuilt every year, a traditional hotel and chalet, and Ice Hotel 365, which features artistic suites and buildings carved out of ice that are kept frozen during summer with a solar-powered refrigerator. So they just do this every year. They just rebuild the entire thing. I have no idea how this works, but I love it. I'm baffled. I have to move on before I get too scared of the idea of like working on something like that. Here's a good one. Scientists create biodegradable batteries that can be buried in soil after use. This is by Good News Network from the 20th. Scientists have created biodegradable batteries that can be buried in soil after use. The paper-thin biodegradable zinc batteries could one day become an environmentally sustainable option for powering smartphones and flexible wearable electronic devices. The N2U Singapore developed zinc batteries are made up of electrodes through which the electric current leaves or enters the battery, screen printed onto both sides of a piece of cellulose paper that has been reinforced with hydrogel. Hydrogel is actually very, very useful, and it's an important thing that we've made recently. Once the battery has been expended, it can be buried in soil where it breaks down completely within a month. That's a good timescale. In a proof-of-concept experiment, the N2U team demonstrated how a 4 centimeter by 4 centimeter square printed paper battery could power a small electric fan for at least 45 minutes. Bending or twisting the battery did not interrupt the power supply. Wow. So it's a flexible battery. In another experiment, using a 4 centimeter by 4 centimeter battery to power an LED, the scientists showed that despite cutting away parts of the paper battery, the LED remained lit, indicating that cutting does not affect the functionality of the battery. This is crazy. The scientists think their printed battery could be integrated into flexible electronics, such as foldable smartphones that are already on the market, or biomedical sensors for health monitoring. Yeah, you could that sounds great. Professor Fan Hongjin from the N2U School of Physical and Mathematical Sciences and the study's co-lead author said, "Traditional batteries come in a variety of models and sizes, and choosing the right type for your device could be a cumbersome process. Through our study, we showed a simpler, cheaper way of manufacturing batteries by developing a single large piece of battery that can be cut to desired shapes and sizes without loss of efficiency. These features make our paper batteries ideal for integration in the sorts of flexible electronics that are gradually being developed." Assistant Professor Lee Seok-woo from the N2U School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering published in Advanced Science, "We believe the paper battery we have developed could potentially help with the electronic waste problem. Given that our printed paper battery is non-toxic and does not require aluminum or plastic casings to encapsulate the battery's components. Avoiding the packaging layers also enables our battery to store a higher amount of energy and thus power within a smaller system." So the idea here is that this electrode, right, is a zinc type of compost that basically it has a current that is in flux inside of it. And when you apply it to something, I don't know what the actual application method is, whether you connect it with like an actual socket electrode or whatever, Maybe you just stick it on. I mean, wouldn't that be crazy if you're like, oh, my paper battery cell ran out. Let me just stick another one onto my computer and I have another 30 minutes or something. I don't know how that would even work, but where this is going is also interesting to me, because literally, if this is the future, then there's no problem with batteries. If we can make them ubiquitous enough, then it's just like, oh, you just put a bunch of stickers on your car and you can go an extra, 150 miles if you need to. Just put some backup batteries in your car, backup batteries. Just a big old stack of these bad boys. And then just slap them on your car whenever you need to. I don't know how that would work, but if it worked that way, that'd be crazy. That's a whole other thing, that's a whole other thing. Check out these solstice webcams capturing today's winter celestial event live at ancient monoliths. This is from the 21st. The ancients were astonishingly aware of the changes in the world they inhabited, and the few structures that survive from their time. Monolithic stone monuments demonstrate this, as they often align with astronomical events. The British and Irish governments are live streaming the monuments of Newgrange in Ireland and Stonehenge in England to allow anyone who wants to watch the setting sun on the 22nd pass straight through the henge and the rising sun through the Newgrange passage tomb. Unfortunately, we're too late for that one, but it's still a good story. The English Heritage YouTube channel stream will begin at 7:25 a.m. GMT or 1:25 a.m. US EST to watch the sunset at Stonehenge on the 22nd of December, while the Heritage Ireland channel goes live every morning at 8:45 GMT or 2:45 a.m. US EST on the 21st and 22nd to show the passage of the rising sun through the burial chamber at Newgrange. Watching the light creep into the 5,000-year-old passage tomb in real time is a moving event that has the power to fill us both with wonder at the ancient architect's ingenuity and with hope for the future, said Patrick O'Donovan at the Office of Public Works Ireland. Shaped inside like a cross with 3 recesses for cremated remains, the low-lying winter sun comes in through a shaft above the main entrance that bathes the central chamber in light for around 17 minutes. It was constructed around 3,200 BCE. My gosh, that's a long time away from Jeebus. For those not wanting to get up so early at the Maeshowe Chambered Carne in Scotland, or I think it's actually Cairn, a live stream will begin to celebrate the winter solstice with poetry and information about the site, coupled with the phenomenon of the setting sun moving perfectly in line with openings down into the interior of the cairn. This occurs at 4 p.m. GMT. It can also be found on this YouTube. Oh, we might be able to see it actually. Maeshowe Chambered Cairn can be found on the island of Orkney and is considered the heart of Neolithic Scotland, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The central chamber is 15 feet in each direction, and the roof is 12 feet high. It is very similar to Newgrange in Ireland, but was built around 500 years after. So let's find what these videos look like. Show us the stuff. Show us the stuff. Oh, this is mostly just informational. There's no actual showing off the craziness to us there. Well, too bad. So, here's your next one. And I'll comment on that one. So when it comes to ancient architecture, especially like ancient English and ancient kinds of European and Scottish and Irish stuff, I find that some of the strange and almost impossible movement of the rocks that they've managed to do there, which isn't of course impossible, but it just seems impossible to us that they can manage to move like Stonehenge and Newgrange and stuff like that. It is such a beautiful show of the things that we take for granted today and the things that are like monumental achievements for them back then. Because I'm sure they probably spent weeks, if not months, both preparing, planning, and actually pulling off the pulling of those stones from wherever they came from to their new location. And I'm not sure if they chiseled and shaped them first. They might have shaped them down a little bit, moved them and positioned them, and then done the finishing touches, right? That sounds like something I would do. But they managed to make one of the world's oldest buildings. I mean, Stonehenge is a massively old building. Massively old. One of the oldest, craziest, like unbelievably still existingest buildings. I guess building isn't right. Structures, right? Structures that's in existence. At least that I'm aware of. Though I'm sure there's information out there to prove me wrong. So our next one is, watch this massive ocean sunfish swim with paddleboarders off the California coast by Andy Corbley from the 21st. When one sees a dorsal fin out of the water, only the calm and eagle-eyed don't immediately think shark. So it was with a group of paddleboarders who came across a sunfish about the size of a car off Laguna Beach in California. Known as the mola mola, I know about the mola mola, the giant or ocean sunfish, which Rick Gurman and his friends discovered could have been 9 foot long according to them, as their paddleboards were about 14 feet in length. I wasn't scared because I knew what it was. German told CBS News, "It looks like a mutated alien shark and that got bit in half." The heaviest vertebrate fish found globally, the mola mola can reach 10 feet in length and weigh 5,000 pounds. Oh my gosh. At a young age, its back fin stops growing and instead folds in towards itself, creating a kind of rudder that also tilts the fish's body at any angle. Is there a video at the end of it? Oh, there is. Okay, cool. I just thought it was kind of neat. This fish is hanging out in the area where it's totally protected and safe, German told NBC News. We hung out with it for probably 30 minutes. Eventually it just dropped below the surface. As it happened, German is the founder of a nonprofit dedicated to ocean conservation. And given the fact that most America's largest news companies came out to interview him, he wasted no airtime in getting the message out that the tropical dwelling mola is listed as vulnerable by the IUCN, and needs help from us, to recover so that more paddleboarders can enjoy the sensational experiences. Dr. Matthew Wheaton posted a close-up and personal video on Instagram of the encounter, which you can take a look at below. So are we muted? We are muted, okay. Holy moly, look at this thing. So, you're in the middle of the ocean, right? Or this is sort of lake-bound ocean. Ocean-bound lake, and this pops up. What do you think it is, right? If you don't know it's a mola mola and that it's safe, you might just be like, what the heck am I looking at? To be fair, that doesn't really look like a very intimidating animal. It just looks like a giant goldfish to me, you know? It's got that kind of vibe to it. Oh, wow, it is kind of a mutant alien, isn't it? Well, I find that creatures that look like that usually look that way because they're trying their very best to adapt and survive, and they've succeeded. And if it meant they were going after a human, it's scary but cute in a way. Yeah, it's true. If they were going after a human, they probably wouldn't just show up to you all slow and sort of waddling and lumbering like that. Anything that's like that slow and that lumbering, I find difficult to be like, well, it doesn't seem like it's a threat. I mean, it just seems it's scary because fish that are big and weird looking are scary inherently. But at the end of the day, that fish, it doesn't mean anyone any harm. I think it's mostly like a small game feeder, which like most fish are small game feeders, especially like medium game. You know, they only eat small fish. That's generally the way it works in the ocean, is most things are actually carnivores. But that's just how it goes. So here's another one. If I could find a way to swim with an octopus, I would want a wetsuit so that it doesn't pull my skin too hard. But if I could swim with an octopus, I think I'd be very happy. Christmas-loving mom transforms her home into real-life gingerbread house. I think I would want to get a video of that, honestly. That'd be great to show on the stream. Great content. A Christmas mad mom has transformed her home into a real-life gingerbread house. So how real are we talking? Is it like made out of gingerbread at this point? Does it have gingerbread enameling on it? Gingerbread paint. 67-year-old Virginia Hoffman spent hundreds of hours festooning her property into a vision from a fairy tale. Homemade decorations include candy canes, giant gumdrops, peppermint swirls, huge chocolate and wafer cookies, and an oversized gingerbread man. So, quick quiz. Which of those candies are you okay with eating? Candy cane, gumdrop, peppermint swirl, chocolate, and wafer cookies. Which of those do you like? And gingerbread men also. That's also fine with me. Interior designer Virginia of Salt Lake City, Utah, says her daughter, son-in-law, and their children all were involved, as well as her husband, who is a professional artist. Well, good. She said, I live in a neighborhood where most of the houses were built in the 1920s, and the architecture has a lot of charming characteristics. I was looking at my circle of houses and thought how they all looked like gingerbread houses with their various roof lines and windows. I began to imagine how I could make some decorations to make my house into a gingerbread home. I drew a little sketch of what was in my mind, and then I started thinking of how to accomplish it. It grew on from there. It was a lot of work, but each year it is fulfilling to see it completed, and I feel like a lot was accomplished with imagination, ingenuity, a little engineering, and figuring things out, and some luck. I'm grateful for the help and support of my husband and family members. Without them, I would not have been able to succeed. They have also spent many hours alongside me. Those are giant gumdrops. Okay. So, quick talk. How are we going to deal with this when it's not winter anymore? If those are real gumdrops, which I assume they're not, if they are real, then you have to start eating those like in February at the latest. Because if you don't eat those soon, they're gonna be a problem. They're gonna be a real problem. I'm sure they're not real, but if they were, imagine the way you would have to escape the terrible cleanup of these things is by eating them very soon. I guess you could donate them somewhere if they were real. I don't think I like gumdrops very much, though. I don't know if I can remember the taste of a gumdrop. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we're finished. Also, a project such as this, taken on with help from family and grandchildren, will hopefully be a long-term memory that they will always remember and maybe cherish. It's a special thing in our family now because we made it ourselves. The best part for me is watching children come, when they come up to the house and they look at things up close, and honestly, the twinkle in their eyes is just magical. I love to see that it catches their imagination. Very wholesome. Let's look at this crazy video. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah, those gumdrops are intimidating for me. They are very cute though. They do look kind of tasty, I have to admit. I don't like peppermint swirls and candy canes. I find them to be very difficult to eat. Just because you kind of have to treat them like a lollipop and then like some kind of crazy hard candy and then like a lollipop again, and then it's just this weird interspersing of that sort of thing. I find it too difficult to manage. The last one I ate was not worth that management. And that was a Skittles lollipop, candy cane, which I thought would be pretty good. But as far as gingerbread men go, I actually think that fresh-baked gingerbread men that are kind of chewy, that have a lot of really cute decorations, and are made with really fresh gingerbread, right? That kind of taste, I'm all for. That's my favorite holiday treat as far as Christmas goes. Because gingerbread men, if you have just enough ginger and cinnamon, and you make the bread, not like a chew, like a crunch, but like a like a cookie, because they are cookies basically, right? That is a wonderful thing. A good gingerbread man is something that's worth looking into for anybody. Even if you can't eat like bread, a gluten-free version of that would still be worthy of your time, I think. I think anybody could enjoy them, really. They're just good. They're just very good. Not when they're too crunchy, though, because if they're too crunchy, then it's kind of like you're just crunching it, you're not really getting as much flavor. Like slightly bread-like, you know? Slightly bread-like. Well, lovely. So here is another one. Okay, I wasn't really prepared for this one, but here we go. More cities make the switch from polluting salt to sugar beets to beat icy roads. Oh my gosh. The puns. This is from Andy Corbley from December the 22nd of 2021. Rock salt is prized for its use as a de-icer, but the mineral's monopoly on curing roads of icy patches may be coming to an end as sugar beet products gradually make their way into transportation department budgets across North America. While salt is enthusiastically caked over streets and sidewalks, when winter weather turns bad, most of us understand somewhere in the back of our minds that throwing salt around willy-nilly is probably a bad idea. I'm guessing it also is true. While salt is most of us, for instance, know that if exposed to too much salt, all useful plants will die, leaving the soil fit only for the hardiest and most hateful of weeds. Those malice-filled, spiteful weeds. Most of us know that salt is also quite corrosive, and that seaside houses need to protect anything, particularly metal, that is exposed to sea spray. Lastly, most of us know that there are two kinds of aquatic habitats, and fish which live in one can almost never live in the other. It's understandable then to see municipalities like DC and Winnipeg, and states like Michigan, trialing alternatives to salt, which was found in one study to be causing major changes in the Great Lakes ecosystem. The benefit from using beet-based melting products is that it reduces the chloride loading on infrastructure and the environment while producing a good quality melting solution, said Winnipeg Communications Officer Ken Allen. Indeed, sugar beet extract, when combined with ice melting chlorides, can actually be more effective at reducing ice than salt. But beets aren't the only food product that's being used in North America. Bloomberg reports that pickle juice, cheese brine, and leftover beer have all been used by various transportation departments looking to reduce the immense budgetary pie slice given to salt purchasing. God, I bet like Colorado has a ton of that problem. Chemical changes caused by salt means water needs a lower temperature than normal to freeze. But when 20% chloride is combined with beet extract, that temperature becomes even lower, meaning only properly frigid temperatures will turn residual water into ice overnight. Around 15 to 17 million tons of rock salt are poured on U.S. roadways every year, which, along with contaminating waterways and drinking water, corrodes plowing equipment, and even leads to greater number of collisions with deer who come out onto the roads to lick the salt. Yeah, I've heard about that. Wisconsin's share of the salt pie accounts for 40% of the state's DOT budget. Oh my gosh, 40%! Ay, ay, ay. And that's probably like well over $1 million on salt. Oh, Lordy Lou. Okay, so this is a good thing. Other states like Illinois are relying on education to reduce contamination from oversalting. I often see a cup worth of salt on a single sidewalk square, but 1 cup of salt should be enough to do an entire driveway, depending on your driveway. Danielle Huck, stream ecologist and director of Illinois' Riverwatch, told Michigan Radio. She suggests dissolving less salt in water and spraying the water onto the ice. Sounds good to me. I'm not really an expert on like the person and the ability to change ice to make it warm in that like quick chemical kind of way. I know naturally things like salt basically contain so much of the ability to not freeze that it is kind of an antifreeze when put on snow. At the same time, though, I mean, let's say we can transfer that from salt to beetroot, which sugar beet, I don't like beets. This is the thing. I have said this for a long time. You may have heard me say this from one of our earlier shows as well. I don't like beets. I think beets are not that good. When I smell, like a red beet especially, I actually cringe. I don't like the smell or the look or the taste of them. They stain everything they touch, and they're a juice in all the worst ways. That is me complaining about beets. They, however, may save the plant, but I do not know if you will ever catch me eating a beet, unless someone comes out with like a proofed study that says they make you live longer and healthier and give you abs. Then I might consider it. But if it was just like, hey, beets will make you 2% live 2% better, but you have to endure like the 15% discomfort from actually ingesting them, not worth it to me. Not worth it. Anyway, that's enough complaining about beets. Keeping active can reduce the risk of dementia, scientists find. From the 22nd. Older adults who participate in a variety of different activities are able to reduce their risk of developing dementia, according to a new study. The team at Simon Fraser University found that engaging in a combination of hobbies, such as exercising, light exercise, and connecting with loved ones, can reduce memory decline in adults between the ages of 65 and 89, more than any individual activity. Their findings show that the effects of engaging in a combination of activities increased with age and was more impactful than historical factors, such as education level or baseline memory. The study examined data from the National Institute on Aging's Health and Retirement Study and included 3,210 participants aged 65 to 89. Study participants were asked how often they engage in 33 activities, from never to at least once a month, to several times a month up to daily. Researchers created a machine learning model to analyze the activities' impact on memory. The activities range from hobbies such as baking or cooking, reading, playing cards, and games to walking for 20 minutes, or socializing with family and friends through letters, email, phone calls, or in-person visits. This reminds me of something that I'm doing this week. I'll get to that after the story's over. Our study results show that the risk of developing dementia can be reduced through a combination of active daily activities, things like using a computer and playing word games. Honestly, I think gamers have pretty good brains because of this sort of thing, says study co-author, I'm saying that last part, not Sylvian Marino, an associate professor at SFU's School of Interactive Arts and Technology, SIAT, and CEO scientific director of the Digital Health Circle based at SFU. Scientists believed that genetics were the main factor influencing cognitive health, but our findings show the reverse. With age, your choice of daily activities is more important than your genetics or your current cognitive skills, Marino adds. The researchers suggest their study results, published in the journal Aging, could have a significant impact on aging health policies, including promoting new social prescribing programs to help older adults keep mentally active into their senior years. Okay, so Co-Carnage, a streamer that I watch, has been talking about gamer rest homes, right? What are those called? Those places where you go when you're old, and people generally need you to sort of be taken care of constantly, and in a retirement home, a gamer retirement home, where basically all you do is play LAN parties with the other retirees. That sounds like a really good way to put your golden years in. Social prescribing involves connecting older adults to a range of activities in the community, such as gardening, art classes, or volunteering. Older adults are more at risk of developing dementia and other neurodegenerative disorders, for which there is no cure, which is why prevention is so important. Their research demonstrates that strategies for prevention are effective, and a social prescribing approach to healthcare can help people maintain healthy cognitive function as they age. That's hopeful news indeed. So everyone should be playing games. We already knew that though. So what was my thing gonna be? Yeah, so I have purchased some ankle weights, and I'm going to be adding those to my daily walks. Probably up to 10 pounds altogether on my legs. And if they have an additional 2 that are there, another 10 pounds on my arms. And the idea is that I will essentially be making myself work 4 times as hard. The idea of adding that weight to my body in motion is, equal to the idea of giving yourself an added difficulty or strain to any activity you might be interested in. If I was to act and be behaving in a way that allowed me to add more weights to myself and to make myself strain more to do the same activities, I love that idea. I like it a lot. It's a hope of mine to have that kind of effect where I can just be doing normal things around the house and be getting ripped because of it. Like that's not a cheat really, but it's certainly an idea that I think about, and I'm going to have to up my intake of protein to do something like that, which I already only just barely get enough these days. So I think eating even more tofu or finding another source of protein on top of that, more likely, would be good. I do like tofu though. I think it's really good. Like air fried tofu, that's a good meal for me. You know, put some veggies or some sauce and hemp seed on that, and you're good to go. Wildlife photographer captures charming portraits of the creatures that visit her garden. A wildlife photographer has captured charming creatures, and her name is Carla Rhodes. She placed a camera trap outside her home in the Catskill Mountains of New York. The resulting pictures from the Beneath the Bird Feeder project include inquisitive birds, playful squirrels, and North America's only venomous mammal, the northern short-tailed shrew. I didn't know there were venomous mammals. Carla, a former ventriloquist, explains, Beneath the Bird Feeder is a photographic project starring many feathered and furred visitors. Subjects were photographed daily via a DSLR camera trap positioned underneath my bird feeder during the winter months of 2020 to 2021. Wintertime allows me to partake in one of my favorite pastimes, feeding the birds. This project reveals insights into species behavior while showing the viewer a new perspective on a common pastime. Oh, look at that one. Oh, what a cutie. Throughout this project, I asked myself many questions. What kind of ecosystem does a bird feeder create? As a result of bird dropping seeds, what other creatures would this attract? And look at that one. It's a tiny boy. When the sun went down, deer mice would gather the aforementioned seeds, caching them in a stone wall near the bird feeder, often helped along by the adorable yet venomous northern short-tailed shrew. When day broke, an assortment of looters from birds to squirrels would raid the cached bounty. Oh my gosh, look at that. Insights into behavior continually intrigue me. Oh my gosh, look at that. They have such big eyes. That looks like a squirrel to me. Dark-eyed juncos were always the first birds to show up at the crack of dawn, while northern cardinals would always show up at dusk. I started to recognize regulars and grew particularly fond of a deer mouse with a notch in his/her ear, who eventually I named Notches. That's great. Oh my gosh, look. It's a mole. I hope Beneath the Bird Feeder inspires others to explore their backyards and give a closer look at overlooked common species, which are no less fabulous than their exotic counterparts. I think moles are fantastic. So, I've thought about the kind of pets I'd like to have in my life. Moles. Let's look up some mole videos. Let's do it. Mole, and then we want to do what is the term for that? Mole. Don't know. I don't think there are very. Oh, axolotls are so cute. There aren't very many mole videos. Wow, I'm surprised. Well, I think moles are fantastic. They're very curious, but also very gentle. Never thought about having a mole as a pet. Could be fun though. You know, I think having a mole that you could sort of track and be aware of where they were in your yard or where they were in your house, I think that would be really useful because they would need like their own area to dig in and to have projects in. Because moles are really active. They're digging almost constantly. It's why they dig so many tunnels though, is because they're constantly escaping or renovating or creating a new space for something else. And then all they need to do is save up some stuff, stash some stuff away, and seal their entrance just enough that they know how to get out and can breathe, but also enough that nothing could come find them and come after their home. Because you know there's squatters trying to get inside of those mole holes. You know it. They just look so fluffy though. They look like you could pet them and then they'd love to hold on to you. That's what I think, but I might be wrong. Okay, so here's another one. Experimental treatment in Spain puts 18 cancer patients into complete remission. Holy moly. This is by Andy Corbley from December the 23rd. 18 out of 30 Spanish patients with incurable blood cancer are in complete remission, and a few more have seen the cancer's progression stopped in its tracks thanks to a new and much cheaper treatment option. Using a patient's own white blood cells, doctors reprogrammed them to better identify and attack the cancerous cells which cause multiple myeloma. The treatment essentially saved the lives of the 18 patients, all of whom had early-stage treatments like bone marrow transplants and chemotherapy fail, after which the survival rate becomes very, very low, according to the Spanish doctor leading the procedure. The doctor was a hematologist, Carlos Fernandez de la Ria, who announced the good news on Friday. Even though it is an incurable disease, achieving a complete remission has a significant impact on patient prognosis. It is directly linked to a greater survival, Fernandez de la Ria told El País. El País, man, it might be El País. El País. I don't know which one it is. Multiple myeloma is the incurable second most common blood cancer, and it begins in the bone marrow, where immature blood cells mutate into cancerous forms of white blood cells called plasma cells. The treatment is called ARI-0002H, and it's part of a new family of cancer fighters called CAR-T, which stands for Chimeric Antigen Receptor T cells. My lord. But holds the honor of the first such European treatment to receive approval for use by a regulatory agency. Developed at the state-run hospital in Barcelona, CAR-T is estimated to cost 90,000 euros, $102,000, about a third of the cost from similar CAR-T options, coming out of companies Bristol, Myers, Squibb, and Janssen. As well as demonstrating a 60% remission rate, 75% of the 30 patients showed no progression of the disease 1 full year after. Wow. Dude, even cancer's taking hits from the good news. Isn't that something? It's certainly something. So we're going to take a short little break for me to talk about what's going on in my Christmas. So I think we'll talk about the Secret Santa. So for me, Christmas is a time that is often devoted to both trying your very best to, change yourself in a meaningful way for the sake of being more jolly, I guess you could say. Not faking feeling better, of course, but genuinely allowing yourself to enter into a state of mind where you look at the world with more good faith and more goodwill. And I achieved that this year, and I I find it insane to say that because I wouldn't have been able to say that even last year. But I did. I have had an incredibly wholesome and healthy and productive day with my family. My brother got my sister a lighthouse meme graphic tee. Has the word Hark on it with a picture of a very bearded Willem Dafoe. And I got my sister the Shia LaBeouf classic Holes, which is no longer available anywhere on the internet except for Disney Plus, because they're good at wiping stuff off the face of the planet if they want to. However, I found that a vintage stock near me had one ready and on order for only $6.50, and that's a steal, my friend. Especially because she wanted a real copy, not a real copy. She wanted a physical copy that she could hold. We got the widescreen with the extra features too, and they both got to watch those. So genuinely, I actually got a gift that would make my sister have a nice time, and also that we could watch right after, which is a bonus, right? I feel like I did a really great thing, because my sister's having hard times recently. Bad situations with friends. Well, in a way, a physical copy is a real copy. It's true. Certainly, it's more real than a digital copy, right? Because, you could argue that as long as it plays, it's real, but I'm not going to argue that. I'm just going to say I gave her a physical copy and leave it at that. She enjoyed holding it, though, and I enjoyed looking at the 90s intro, title menu. If you are old enough, James, to know what I'm talking about, in the 90s, movies had a method, and the early 2000s as well. It stopped pretty soon after that, though. It was 2008 was the cutoff point for this sort of thing, from what I've seen. There used to be this thing where movies would have menus, right? These stylized title screens where you would have your options to watch the movie, sometimes in chapters if they were really sort of trying to win your approval. Or sometimes it was just hey, here's deleted scenes, start the movie, watch it in different screen types, and generally just, see some extra stuff that we have to offer. For the most part, these have always been a weird niche of style and substance, because on one hand, they're trying to showcase the sort of art direction of the media that you're watching, but also give you a effective way of seeing the information of what you're trying to do on screen at once. In this case, it was like a big hole in the ground that had a mirage of images playing inside of it. Old enough to remember those. Recently turned 21. Oh, congratulations, James. That's fantastic. Well, happy 21. A belated 21 for me, mind you. But some of them are very charming. Some of them are absolutely horrifying and creepy and actually just hard to look at. But most of them are charming, though, and have their own thing going on. And this one was one of those where it's it was very reminiscent of the early 200s when young-faced Shia LaBeouf, was in a better place, it seems. And, it's a fun movie. It's just a solid movie with good story, good writing, good weaving of narratives, good characters, good acting. Everything is at least good, and some things are great. That's all you can ask for in a movie, is that it's at least good, right? At least entertaining, and it is. It's entertaining and more. So we had a great time doing that. Things are looking real nice today. And this is the best Christmas I've had probably since I was 9 years old or something, which is crazy, right? That I know that and I can feel that. So I am personally feeling great about it. I think that this Christmas has gone fantastically. And it's the first gift I've given somebody in about 10 years, unfortunately, if not longer than that. I have to admit, there was a dry spell where I wasn't giving out any gifts at all. But that is a common thing with people who have depression or melancholia, especially, is they don't have like the energy or creativity or inspiration to give gifts to their family. But my sister's been talking about holes for almost 2 years now, it seems, since like the beginning of this year, almost. It's when she was talking about like how they took it off of everything. Oh, you're glad I had an amazing Christmas. I'm glad you had a nice Christmas too, but thank you. It's a real ring dinger to come back and be like, hey, I made it work. You know, it was real good. It really knocked around some of my thoughts about what Christmas can be. And I know my brother was happy to see some activity happening on Christmas. He likes Christmas a lot too. So does my sister. My parents, they don't put any effort into it anymore. And, you know, they're both kind of busy and doing other things. My father especially doesn't seem to care. So he's just not into it. I think my mom is avoidant of Christmas for the most part. But she got me and my family Amazon gift cards. So, you know, there's that at least. And $10, you know, it's something. That's what I bought my ankle weights with. So, you know, there's that. And, you know, I'm happy about it because honestly, I think changing your brain to look at things, that's very similar to what they were talking about with the cannabinoids, with the changing your brain chemistry. I have a very interesting theory about that actually, because it is important for us to know that like people, when they imbibe or change these sorts of things, it is for some people an issue of stupefaction, right? To be like, I don't want to feel anything. I just want to be zoned out and be chilled. But I think if you are able to look at it like, if you look at it like, I want to learn something from my experience, you know, enough of a kind of rehabilitative drug to be able to be suggestible to growing and changing, but not so much that you can't do anything because you're so like, you know, oh, you're so zonked or zombified by your experience. That is the sweet spot that could cure someone from their depression. That's what I think. I think if you have the right strain and the right dose of something like marijuana, that could so like seriously impact, so that could put someone into remission for like a long time. Just being like, hey, you know, this is the sort of thing that changes somebody and makes them have better thoughts and permanently affects them in a good way. Now, assuming that's true, which I think if it's all the stuff I've heard, the media I know of, and the stories I have seem to correlate that it's true, but assuming that it's true and there isn't a long-term marijuana use thing that we don't know about, I imagine that in the next like 25 years, that's going to become super important because, you know, depression is a worsening thing in our world, considering that there are more people and irresponsibly, on top of there being more people, there is less room for those people to be helped by society and they fall through the cracks. And, you know, I fell through the cracks really hard for about 10 years, if not longer. And, you know, I somehow managed to be here today, which I'm very grateful for. But, you know, I was at risk for a long time. And if I had something like that, like a really, like the CBD thing they're talking about, if I had a really, really well documented and well therapized and treated and resourced and proven thing to use in my recovery, I would have done it. I would have taken it, right? I would have been there for that. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that's going to use a bias or a stigma from other people to stop them from basically doing something that will help them almost for sure, right? It's almost like, yeah, it will just help you, you know, dependent on other things, of course, but like 75% of people said they at least felt something from it, feeling better, or at least, you know, had some reaction that was good. So that's pretty big, you know, 75% is pretty big. But I'm going on a tangent. What I mean to say, though, is that for sure, anybody who can find like a positive outlet to effectively remedy themselves, It's hard to argue with that. And this seems like one of them. So let's get on to some of our last Good News Network stories. Okay. This one's a little creepy, though. Mystery Santa caught on CCTV sneaking around at night, leaving gifts for residents to find. So he's got like a slew of outfits that he wears, and he just like kind of strangely but also adorably and cutely wanders around in these outfits, just giving people gifts. All right, well, let's see. A mystery Secret Santa has been caught on CCTV, baffling locals in Holbrook's, Coventry, where they were left scratching their heads when candy canes suddenly appeared overnight outside their homes last week. And one homeowner was pleasantly surprised when CCTV revealed the culprit behind these random acts of kindness. It was Father Christmas himself. Comical footage shows Santa and an accomplice. He would run so fast away from that Santa. I know, it's very creepy in this particular black and white footage, isn't it? It's a particularly horrific idea of a Santa that wants to help you, but looks that way. Oh, you know what it has, James? This has like Nightmare Before Christmas, like, I'm Santa, right? Where it's like a very creepy thing. The footage is gone, we can't see it, yeah. No, I know, you've seen everything. I mean, it's just creepy stuff. You've seen everything, though. But I'll show you again. It has very Nightmare Before Christmas vibes, where it's like, this person has the best, it has the best intentions, and is doing like a really awesome thing, but they're just very creepy. They're very uncomfortable looking, you know? This outfit, like, seeing it move and seeing it look around, yeah, definitely, it's got that vibe. It's very bizarre, and I don't want to look at it for much longer, to be honest with you. Families say their children have been delighted when they awoke to discover sweets left behind on their mums and dads' cars ahead of the big day. Resident Becky Leeper was left in hysterics when she checked back her security camera footage to see Santa and his helper delivering the gifts. Maybe it's cuter in motion, right? Maybe it's cuter in motion. Becky and police staff worker who lives with husband Michael and his 2 children said, "Me and my husband found it really funny the first time. Then the second time, my husband thought someone was trying to break into our car, so opened the window and then burst out laughing. The tree then walked all the way up to our drive and put a candy cane on the van as well, then went up to our neighbors. The kids think it's really funny and that Santa is having them delivered. We're waiting to see who it will be this Sunday. We all think it's great after such a rubbish year to lift these good spirits." Another local resident, Dis Carpenter, added, "It certainly has spread a bit of festive cheer, that's for sure, and it's a lovely thing for them to do. I want to see that footage so I can know how creepy they really are. Because, like, maybe the way they move is, like, not creepy, right? Maybe they have, like, a really cool sachet, or they're, like, really cute in action. But there's a huge probability that these guys are just very, very creepy, and the wholesome, lovely Irish towns don't see how creepy they really are. And maybe they don't see how creepy they are either. And they're just being great. They're being awesome. But, like, to anybody looking at it from the outside, it's like, ooh, that guy in that outfit. I want to see it as being wholesome. I want to see it as being wholesome. I want to look past my biases. I think I'm not ready yet, though. I'm not ready to see someone in that kind of outfit and to think of good thoughts just yet. Hopefully someday, though, right? Hopefully someday. Spectacular time-lapse shows the hypnotic flames on the surface of the sun. This is some top-tier stuff right here. Look at this. It looks like an angry face, right? Like a horrible, like, HE double hockey sticks face. These spectacular time-lapse images, taken with a powerful telescope, show the hypnotic flames on the surface of the sun. 39-year-old Dedi Diag used 2 powerful telescopes to film the sun's surface over several hours in order to create a mesmerizing time-lapse of video. He uses a 152mm achromat refractor telescope, oh my gosh, a 200mm Schmidt Cassegrain telescope, and an H-alpha 0.5 angstrom H alpha filter on a tracking mount to capture sites impossible to see with the naked eye. That is some high tier stuff. If you have a 152 and a 200 and a 0.5, gosh, I don't think you know what else. I mean, what else could you need to take pictures with that? Denny from Israel said, I capture the sun because it is the most interesting and fascinating object that is near enough to explore from Earth. The sun, which is a star like all other stars in the universe, is constantly changing, and we as humans living out our lives don't even notice it. Most of the time, we just think of it as a bright light in the sky. A few seconds of watching those videos and your entire view of it changes. It is actually like a roiling cauldron, a maelstrom of fire and storm and plasma. Like, it is a crazy looking thing. I don't have to see this to know what it looks like already. I've seen a lot of stuff like this, but I'm sure this will be cool. When I reviewed the footage for the first time, I was blown away. Literally, I shuddered with excitement. And now, after almost 2 years of imagining the sun, I can still say that I get excited every time I aim the telescope up there, because each time you don't really know what to expect. Each time is a surprise. I hope people will watch those videos and understand how small we are compared to our sun. Our sun, named Sol, I didn't know that was named Sol, holds 99.8% of the entire solar system's mass. We are a grain of dust, as it is sometimes said. So, oftentimes, you could say that the sun is a entire ridiculously sized thing that is completely covered and coated in a layer of magnetically charged fire that is on the verge of being both lightning and plasma that folds and flows amidst and around itself with the same conveyances and the same materials as liquid, but it does so almost in like a polyester, like saran wrap stretch kind of way that makes it seem like there's some kind of order to the madness. But honestly, this is madness. This is the chaos that exists in the stars inside of our universe. And look at that. You can just see it. It looks as if it is the close-up of some kind of amoeba or some kind of cell, but look at that. You can see the atmosphere. You can see the fire bending and twisting until it turns into an aurora of flames, engulfing and lapping, escaping the magnetosphere just to turn back into plasma. And that's science right there. It does make me feel poetic to look at stuff like this. Though honestly, if you didn't know what this was, you would have no idea what you're looking at. You know, it looks like some sort of deep sea thing. So yeah, that is insane to think about that. That is a sight to behold. Honestly, it is a sight to behold. Anyway, enough poetry about the sun for now. Old Soul needs some time outside of Cast Talks. We'll come back to it someday, though, I'm sure. So here is one of our last ones. We have a few more left, and then we're done. Cats are less stressed in families with children who have autism, study finds. This is by Good News Network. While researchers have found that adding a shelter cat to the family can help lower stress and anxiety for children with autism, a new study shows that joining a family does wonders for the felines, too. It's not only important to examine how families of children with autism may benefit from these wonderful companion animals, but also if the relationship is stressful or burdensome for the shelter cats being adopted into a new, perhaps unpredictable environment, said Gretchen Carlisle, I got it right, a research scientist at the University of Missouri Research Center for Human-Animal Interaction in the MU College of Veterinary Medicine. In our study, we found that cats acclimated well to their new families and became significantly less stressed over time. The findings highlight the mutual benefits of human-animal interaction and build off previous MU research that found pets may help reduce stress and anxiety for both children with autism and their parents. I'm sure it also benefits some of their other symptoms that should be either remedied or, what's the right word for that? Ameliorated. Carlisle and her team monitored shelter cats for 18 weeks after being adopted by Missouri. These families with at least one child with autism. The cats were first screened using the feline temperament profile to identify shelter cats with a calm and laid-back temperament. After families selected a cat that had passed the screening, researchers made home visits to check on the cat 2 to 3 days after adoption, and then every 6 weeks for 18 weeks to see how they acclimated to their newly adopted families. Cortisol is a stress measure we tracked through collecting samples of the cat's feces, and we noticed a significant decrease in cortisol over time, Carlisle said. Cats also tend to lose weight due to not eating if they're stressed, but we found the cats actually gained a bit of weight initially after adoption and then maintained their weight as time went on. So both findings indicate the cats acclimated well. Carlisle explained that children with autism may have sensitivity or sensory issues and occasional problem behaviors accompanied by loud, sudden outbursts. Because of these concerns, shelter cats have been screened for a calm, easygoing temperament that may increase the likelihood of a better long-term match for both the children and the cat. So yeah, I'll get into this after we finish. It's crucial to look after the welfare of the cats from a humanitarian standpoint, and this research also helps animal shelter staff overcome the financial and management hurdles that can result when cats are returned to shelters if there's not a good fit with the adopted family, Carlisle said of the study published in Frontiers in Veterinary Science. Obviously, the shelters want to place all of their cats in homes, but some families may require a more specific fit, and using research-based objective measurements for screening temperament may help increase the likelihood of success in long-term matches. Our hope is that other scientists will build on the work of our exploratory study so shelter cats and families of children with autism might benefit. So, there are a lot of, I believe you could call them proof studies, right? Scientifically proven studies that show that the correlation between children with autism, or really anybody with autism, could affect this positively, but children are especially affected by it, actually become very, very self-aware and very, very gentle and caring, and they open up in new ways and have new adventures that they wouldn't have had before with animals, especially very, I guess you could call them gentle, nurturing, safety, and affection animals. I guess they would be emotional support animals in a way as well. Children who benefit from that actually can discover and learn different emotions that they didn't completely get before. And that's a very difficult part of autism, is not just sympathy, but actual empathy can be very difficult. And empathizing with an animal is a great place to start with for anybody who has empathy problems. In fact, a lot of people that have antisocial anxieties or feelings or even disorders find that working with animals is an incredibly powerful way to understand that they have a huge impact on the world around them, and that even offering a small amount of your time to help in any capacity anywhere is worth it. However, volunteering is not the only thing that is important in this world. Certainly it's up there though. Volunteering your time, it's good for the mind, the body, and the soul. But certainly, the mind is affected quite heavily. Do I really care about this long-winded post about old people? No. Okay, we've got one more left, and then we'll probably close up. So here's a goodie for the rest of the stream. Monarch population soars 4,900% since last year in a thrilling 2021 Western migration. By Andy Corbley from Today. when just 200 western monarch butterflies arrived in the Pismo Beach Butterfly Grove from their northerly migration last year. Park rangers feared the treasured insect would soon be gone forever. However, this year, volunteers tallied their numbers at over 100,000, a spectacular swarm of hope that traveled down as far as north as Canada to spend the winter on the California coast. Gosh, I love monarchs. It's expected that the monarch butterfly will be placed on the endangered species list soon due to declines in both western and eastern monarch butterfly numbers. Genetically indistinguishable, they are separate merely for the fact that monarchs living and migrating east of the Rockies overwinter in Mexico, while those on the western side of the Rockies overwintering along California's west coast. This year, the monarchs arrived early and in droves. The Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation held their annual Thanksgiving count, and volunteers arriving at the break of dawn to count butterflies still lying quietly on tree trunks found a living curtain of orange and black. Early estimates put the tally at 100,000 individuals. The butterfly boom brought joy to gardeners and park rangers alike. Danielle Bronson recounted it was the sight of monarchs covering every square inch of bark and branch that spurred her with the desire to become a park ranger when she was young. To see the monarchs return this year in such numbers was special. Last year was devastating, but this year I'm very hopeful, she told the Christian Science Monitor. Xerces said the Biden administration spending bill includes $10 million over 5 years to be given for building monarch habitats west of the Rockies, such as replenishing the population of native milkweed plants, particularly along highways and power lines where nothing else is being done with the land. Nothing's happening there, so. Providing funding for roadside pollinator habitat can help bees, monarch butterflies, and other flower visitors, stated Serena Gibson, the Xerces Society director of the Endangered Species Program. The good news is that transportation agencies can adjust practices to help pollinators without compromising safety or other primary objectives. Bronson points out that individuals like you can also make a real difference. The simplest method, she says, is to plant nectar-producing flowers, but not milkweed. Sometimes, milkweed is sold in non-native varieties, which can distract migrating butterflies along their route. So unless a gardener knows the difference between the two, planting nectaring flowers will instead provide valuable food sources along their long migration journey. You really can't go wrong with that one, because you're not just helping monarchs, you're helping all pollinators, she says. The butterflies will gain significant protection if named to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's endangered list. It is the single most effective conservation program in the world, with 99% of all the almost 300 species listed in its history avoiding extinction. That's great. Meanwhile, whatever has exploded the western monarch numbers this year is a welcome change, and may well continue into the 2020s. Fantastic. Let's see how far we are right now. We're actually almost finished now. Great. Lovely. So, I guess I'll finish out what's going on. Tomorrow, there probably won't be a stream like we normally see tomorrow with Playful, because I think she might still be at her family's. But there are streams that I am considering the existence of right now, one of them being a new type of stream, which is sort of just a writing and creative time stream, and another one is going to be a kind of a reaction stream, which will be me reacting to something, and we're kind of seeing where we want to go with that. There's a lot of stuff that could happen there, a lot of stuff that is interesting and kind of going on, but I don't want to make this into a reaction channel. In fact, I probably will just save them to YouTube and not upload them, but as far as what I would like to do with this channel, I would like to push more content from it, because I do love the idea of more people being able to see and be, have a good time because of what they're watching on this channel. But it is sometimes difficult, to have this stuff working and moving and being active. But I will say, we are already making a huge amount of progress just showing up and having fun together for another Christmas, another day. This is the second Christmas of Cast Talks. The second one. It's pretty great. So, as I have only just now gotten to say it, everybody out there who is enjoying Christmas, who is enjoying themselves and their day, I hope that you have a fantastic and wonderful rest of your evening, a happy holiday, a safe, quiet time, and that on this particular day, that you take it easy and have a Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for chatting, Rissy and Tubi, and everybody take care. And I'll see you next time, okay? Bye for now. Are we doing New Year's as well? Are we doing New Year's? New Year's. Saturday in the next Cast Talks is New Year's. Oh my gosh. Well. Look at that. See you on New Year's. Bye-bye for now.